Hey everybody, so it's Pastor Steve and me, Sean, and we are doing another Behind the Sermon. So
You
Steve,
kind of winced when you said that. Is it painful?
today's message was wonderfully painful. I actually really liked it. I liked the way that our hearts were pricked by today's message. Surprisingly, there's like, 5 more of these messages. But Steve, the big old mean clock cut you off.
The big old meanie clock. Yeah.
What would you have preached if you could have kept going for another 2 hours? What do you think?
I don't know about 2 hours, but there are 2 things I wished I could have spent more time on, and I knew it going into the sermon. I knew I wouldn't get to. One of them I didn't even mention. So the first one, however, is there was something in the sermon. So let's review the sermon real fast. It was about Old Testament and New Testament, same thing. There are many, many sins. There's a path. There's a provision made for a believer who falls into one of those sins. The Old Testament, the path is offer the right sacrifice. New Testament path is offer the sacrifice of confession, really.
Right.
So that's the path to keep you in fellowship with God. But then there's one sin, Old Testament or New, that kicks you out of covenant with God, and that is walking away from Him, turning your back on the true and living God, New Testament or Old. So that got us into the subject of steps toward paths that lead one to apostasy, to idolatry, to turning away from God. And in the conclusion, I had 5 concluding points. One of them touched on that. I would have liked to develop that a lot. Like that could be a sermon maybe, but it'd be kind of a downer of a sermon, man. Here's all the ways to destroy yourself. Here are all the paths that lead to apostasy. Yeah. But so many people are walking down those paths that it would be a good idea to warn people. Here's what to look out for. Here's where it starts. Here's where it goes next. Did a little of that, but I would have liked a lot more of that. Also, because of that one sin, breaking covenant with God, becoming an idolater, leaving God and going after the idols of your nation, that's very closely related to this thing called the unpardonable sin. So I would have really liked to spend some time then connecting it to, like, here's what the New Testament says about the unpardonable sin. And see this thing we talked about today, idolatry, turning your back on God, walking away, not holding fast. It really is, well, in many cases, it would be the unpardonable sin. That may be why in Hebrews, I think it's in chapter 6, he says, it's impossible to renew them again to repentance. Part of it is they've done the unpardonable sin. So people want to know, it seems to be an interesting topic, what is the unpardonable sin? I want to make sure I don't commit it. Right. And basically, it is when you have had clear light, like let's take the scribes and Pharisees, they're seeing Jesus right in front of them, the Son of God. He's incarnate. He's speaking words like nobody ever spoke, and all they could say was, oh, he has a demon, and he's a lunatic. He's crazy.
Right.
That is the unpardonable sin. Have that kind of light and reject it. So... well, we're out of time.
We are, but I'd love to talk about this more with you, Steve. So
Thanks, Sean.
We'll see you on the next one.
All right.
You're welcome.